the other day I was on Twitter, and it was funny because the caption on the photo was "If you know, you know," and it was a stool with a foam roller and the Vans. And it went super viral, and everyone was either tagging you or saying something about you. This shit went viral, and I was like, "Oh, I had to tell you," because you've had such an impact in especially, let's take bioenergetics for instance. That has been fundamental in, and it was just crazy. Like I'm talking, like it was like 60,000 like likes or something. Like everyone knew what it was, what we were talking about. Didn't even have to say it. So talk us about, because I want to put, yeah, I know it's fucking funny, bro. I'm gonna put some fucking clips of bioenergetics here, but tell us how you got into it, how you've been pretty much the forerunner. I've gone on YouTube. You've got the SEO on point. You are the man when it comes to bioenergetics. Everyone's on the whiteboard giving their shit, and you're fucking doing it. So give us like how you got into
Yeah.
that more of, and if anyone doesn't know, I will explain to it a bit later. But yeah, bioenergetics in general.
So I, when I was in my early 20s, I was still living in New York, and I was going through a rough time. My first daughter was born. I was living in my father-in-law's basement, and I got introduced to this guy named Osho. I was reading his books
Yeah.
about meditation. I was like, oh wow, meditation might be helpful for me.
Okay.
And he had a unique spin on meditation. He called it active meditation. I was like, wow, active, because I'm an active
Yeah.
guy. I'm into fitness. And so these active meditations were about using your body to get into a state of flow, right? So, a lot of breathing, a lot of movement, just doing things with your body, dancing around, just getting out of your own way by being physically free. That's what it was all about. And so these active meditations led me, or the books about active meditation led me to taking a workshop in New York City. It was a 21-day workshop where you did something called dynamic meditation, where you're breathing, you're jumping, and then you're doing like lay down on the floor. And I was like, wow, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
So I went and took this workshop, and I liked it so much that I hired the lady that taught the class for a session called bioenergetics. She said, I have a bioenergetics session. It's sort of like active meditation, but it's one-on-one. I was like, oh, wow, that seems pretty cool. So I did it, and I go into the first session, and she has me doing some really wacky breathing. Like she has me bending my body back, have my mouth wide open and my eyes pushing out. She said, bug out your eyes, try to touch the wall of your eyes. So here I'm like this. And she has me breathing like that for like 10 minutes. And I'm like shaking, and I'm like, wow, this is intense. This is tough. When I'm right about to break down, like I can't do it anymore, she goes, okay, good, relax. Now walk with me over to this mattress. She had a mattress on the floor. And she said, lay down, face down on the mattress, hold the edge of the mattress and start socking your hips into the mattress. She says, hump the mattress. So she says, keep your mouth open and keep humping the mattress. I don't know what the fuck's going on, to be completely honest. I didn't know what I signed up for. So I'm here going, and then after about 5 minutes of that, it's like a dam broke. Boom. And I started laughing. And I'm laughing so hard that tears are coming, and nothing funny happened. I mean, what I was doing was pretty wacky and funny, but I was so engaged in what I was doing. I wasn't thinking about how funny it was. But I started laughing. And it was like laughing like when your belly hurts and the tears are coming and I can't stop. And I'm apologizing that, like, I hadn't laughed like that since I was maybe 7 years old. I mean, who laughs like that anymore? It was just like taking over my whole being, just laughing. And I'm trying to apologize and catch my breath. I'm trying to say like, sorry, I can't control it. And she explains to me very calmly. She says, that's okay. Let it come up, let it come out, and let it be. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'm just going to laugh. It's like, I can't laugh anymore. And then I'm like, what happened? And she says, well, you had some blocked emotions in your body and mainly in your hips. And she knew this by assessing me, just by looking at me. She says, your hips were kind of blocked up with joy. She says, your hip, your pelvic area is the joy center in your body. Like joystick. I don't know. I have no idea what she's talking about. So I got a joystick down there. So this is your joy center. And we're through the breathing and through knocking the muscles, we're able to release the trapped emotion. Now, you say this to someone and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, it doesn't make any sense, right? Like you could get into all kind of pseudoscientific explanations, but the fact is I did that and I felt that and I was like, this is wild. This is medicine. This needs to be, people need to know about this.
Yeah.
So that's the essence of my experience with it. But many years later, maybe about 10 years later, when I was living in Florida, I thought of her again. One day I thought of her. I said, I wonder how Kasana's doing. I sent her an email and said, hey, I'm wondering if you know anybody that does that kind of stuff down in Florida, because I just forgot about it. I'm so busy. And she said, no, I don't, but you should read these books. And she named Alexander Lowen. I bought one of Alexander Lowen's books, realized he had 11 more, and I spent like 2 months devouring all his books. And so he had scientific explanations as to what was happening.
Wow.
Like there's soft science because he calls it bioenergetic analysis. So it has to do with the soul. It has to do with the mind. It has to do with the emotions, it has to do with the nervous system and the muscular system. It's truly holistic. And so my mind was blown while reading this guy's books. He's got diagrams and everything. And he's a really good writer. He's a super smart guy. He was an MD. He was a PhD. He was an MD in 2 different sciences, and he was a prolific writer and speaker. And so he was a genius of a man. And so I just fell in love with all of his work. One day I'm wondering, okay, this is great. I'm reading all this, but I want to do this. And in fact, I have the book right here. I go to the back of the book to see where it was published. And I saw that it was published in Alachua, Florida. I looked that up. I was like, oh, that's 2 hours away from me. So I contacted the publisher. I said to the publisher, I said, hey, do you know where I could learn more about where this is actually practiced?
Yeah.
And he says to me, oh, nice to meet you. I am the publisher of Alexander Lowen's books, but I was also his top student for 20 years. And I have a practice here in Alachua, Florida. His name was Dr. Glazier.
Wow.
So I started visiting Dr. Glazier. And he had me doing the mattress humping. And he had me doing all kinds of weird. Now, that was just one part of it.
Yeah.
He had me do the first time he had me. Now, I didn't know what to expect again. It had been 10 years.
Yeah.
He had me doing some similar breathing, but then he had me do this weird exercise where I started crying. And so I had another, Wilhelm Reich, who's Alexander Lowen's teacher. So like, that's the lineage. Right. Freud, Reich, Lowen. Wilhelm Reich called it the orgastic wave. Your body basically has many orgasms. Your only orgasm isn't when you blow your load. You can orgasm through the face. When you laugh, it's like an ejaculation through your face. When you cry, you're ejaculating. You ever get like boogers and stuff?
Yeah.
You're literally ejaculating through your face. The same way energy moves down and circulates and it lets through in your penis, that's an orgasm. But energy is energy in the body, and you can ejaculate it up through the face. In fact, a good percentage of our orgastic ejaculation happens through the face if we are relaxed enough to allow that to happen. And that takes some practice. And it takes some breaking through. So he had me doing some breaking through exercises. And I started crying, sobbing. Nothing sad happened.
Just came out.
Nobody died. He was just having me breathe and move. And as a result, trapped sadness in my heart, he told me. He says, you have a heavy sadness on your heart that wanted to be lifted. And through the breathing and the exercise, I was able to release it the same way I released laughing from my pelvis. So, if at this point you're intrigued, you know why, and why I was intrigued, you can tell why. So I spent about 2 years working with Dr. Glazier until he died. And when he died, that's when I went into my tunnel. That's when I went into my, I didn't mention it before because there's so many different pieces to the puzzle. When I
Yeah.
mentioned in my late 30s where I started to like sort of get depressed, it was literally right after Dr. Glazier died. Right after he died, I was so open, and I was teaching people bioenergetics on YouTube, and I was teaching everything that I was learning from Dr. Glazier, and I was like, wow, I'm bringing this to the world because it's so awesome. Well, right at the peak of that, he died. I freaked out and I left it alone. And I really haven't picked it up since. I've hired various teachers here and there and practitioners, but nobody was nearly as good as Dr. Glazier. I even hired Alexander Lowen's son, thinking like, hey, this is the master's son. He doesn't know what he's doing. It takes a very special person, very skilled practitioner to know what they're doing to get you to that state where you can have that kind of orgastic reflex. And I think a part of the reason why it hasn't really taken hold is because that's a rare individual. I thought that I was going to become that kind of individual, but I realized that wasn't God's calling for me. So I basically left it alone. But if anybody's listening to this right now, and you're fascinated, study the work of Lowen and try to find a good practitioner and become a good practitioner, because the world would be a better place if we didn't have all this trapped emotion.